Hello everybody, Nate here from Preparation 101, and today I'm going to be showing you guys a couple of pretty simple, easy to make primitive traps. So the first one, I've already carved out one to show you guys what I'm talking about, and then I'll carve one out with you guys on a larger scale. That way it's easy for you to see the notches, but really the size that I carved out first, that's about a pretty usable size for small game. So there's the figure 4 deadfall trigger, and you have three sticks. You want your thickest stick to be this one across the top here, because this one is going to hold the weight of your deadfall up here where my hand is, and you have to carve a notch part way into it. So you really want to make sure this is a thicker stick, so that way it's not going to break so easily right here where this notch is. And that comes down to a notch here into your bait stick, and then your bait stick hooks onto this upright piece, and it's just the pressure that holds it all together. And yeah, it's pretty sensitive. Let me set this up for you guys. It's hard to hold these and talk about them at the same time, so I was Alright, so the end of your bait stick here, it definitely helps unless you know it's a very well used little game trail. Maybe you built this over the entrance to a little den of a squirrel, and you know for sure he's going to be walking through there. But if he walks through and brushes up against that, that's going to kick out of the way and drop the weight on top of him. So I've already pre-cut 3 pieces, and we're going to carve this out together. So this one, it's going to be my upright. Like I said, the thickest one should be your top piece, but since these are so oversized anyways, I'm not really worrying about. This one is thicker. This will be my upright. I think I'll go that way. And then right here will be my bait stick. So the first thing that I like to carve the top of the upright. So since it broke off, it's pretty much already close. I just need to flatten this out a little bit across the top there. That's pretty good. And then you're going to take your angle piece and just kind of eyeball how you want that to sit on there, and take into account the curve of the stick, because you can see the way that this stick is curved. If I were to do it this way, see that curve, the weight's going to make it twist on me and it'll never stay locked in place. So I want to look for that natural curve and use it to my advantage. I want to work with the curve, not against it. So in this case here, that curve will sit just perfectly on top there. I'll put a little notch right where I want to start, and then just make sure you carve on the right side of this the best you can. This isn't rocket science, so it doesn't have to be perfect. So I'm going to carve straight in and basically just make a 7 notch on this. And if it doesn't sit properly, we can always go back and make adjustments. There, just a little notch, just enough for it to hook in place on top here, so it's not going to be sliding down, and that sits pretty nicely. So now this end over here, keeping straight with the same side that we made this 7 notch in, we're going to take this down to a point, kind of a wedge shaped point. So now this one right here is one of the important ones that you got to make sure it's squared up with this here as close as you can. You can see I'm twisting off to one side a little bit. It's an easy fix. Just take more off the other side. And I'll come from the back here. Try and straighten that out. Now on the side that's underneath, down here, you are going to want to take more material away so that it'll sit in the next notch better. This top part here, you just want to help it make that point. And then also you want it to be somewhat straight across this top part. Okay. So we've got 1 and 2. Next, we've got our bait stick here. Like I say, you kind of got to look at your stick and see if it's got a weird curve to it. That looks fine. So right here, where my finger's moving, I'm going to make another 7 notch. I'm going to go straight down where my finger is. Straight down, and then I'll carve down at my angle into that straight cut. I just need to make it deep enough that my wedged piece can dig in there and grab a hold of it. I'm going to need to bring this back, open it up a little bit more so that this will sit down in there a little bit better, because right now that lump's kind of in the way. All right, we only have 2 more cuts to make. And one great thing about this trap here is that you don't need any cordage. All you need is something sharp and a couple sticks. So for this next one, I'm going to need to kind of line things up. Where am I going to come across at? All right, I'm going to have to put it down. I'm trying to find a way to hold this up and show you guys what I'm doing, but really I have to lay this down, which is how you would normally do it when you're not trying to do a demonstration. That way you can make a mark. One on the top side of the stick, one underneath the stick. Now what I need to do with this upright is I need to make a squared corner here. So to do that, all I'm going to do is remove some material till I get one side flat. And you want this flat to be perpendicular to this point. And then I'm going to come to the back side, the side that is away from the other notches you've made so far on the end of your bait stick. Just keep going until you have yourselves a good 90-degree corner. Might need a little adjusting, but we'll come back to that. Okay, the last notch that we need to carve. And put this back together. We have our bait stick here. Okay, so your bait stick sits this way. You're going to want to carve the side that's going to be up against your upright. So you're going to want to have a 7-notch. You want the straight side to be opposite of your first 7-notch on the end here. And this all makes sense when you start putting one together yourself. And I'm just going to open it up a little bit so that it'll sit up against the side of the upright a little better. Okay, now we will test fit. There we go. Locked in place. Bones, you gotta move, they can't see. Bones, get back. Sorry about that, I didn't realize he was right in your way. But hey Bones, get back please. There you go, that's how you carve out a figure 4 deadfall trap, and this is something that I recommend for those of you guys that like to go outdoors a lot practicing this. Try carving one on your own, and it's really something that sticks with you for a long time. Once you've done it once, you really kind of remember it, and it also is a good practice for carving. You know, you've got a couple different notches that you make, and it's fun seeing how the different sticks can fit together and lock in place. And then all it takes, something bumps that, the trap goes down. So now we'll go set one up. So the spot here that I've picked out, obviously some animals like squirrels have been living inside of this tree here. There's a little hole right here, and then you can see all of these pieces of pine cones that have been stripped for the seeds by the squirrels. So these are the sorts of things you want to be looking for whenever you're going to be trapping an animal, is you want to find an area that they've been in, and you can see signs that they are active in that area. So if you just go set up something in the middle of a field, you have no idea if there's even animals in that area. So, hey, back. There aren't any large flat rocks in this area, so I'm going to use this log here for my deadfall. And I would put this in a little bit more of an area where there's only one way in and one way out, and that's through the deadfall. But for the demonstration, it's just easier to be a little bit more out in the open. Do not let go of this stick on top with your hand underneath, because if this isn't set perfect, it'll spring. You can tell it's already not going to work. And you don't want this springing with your hand underneath. Alright, so in here we have our bait stick. And it's called a bait stick because it works best if you have some kind of bait to put on the end of this. So if you were to find some pine cones that haven't been cleaned out yet, take a few of these pine seeds and smash them into the end of that stick and scatter a couple underneath here. Now how this works is the little squirrel comes hopping along through the brush here, hits that, bam, squirrel smashed, squirrel stew. So that's a pretty simple and easy thing to set up. And like I said, just make sure you don't let go of that top stick with your hand underneath. I've seen so many people smash their fingers in these, and if you're careful, you won't. And like, I have yet to smash my fingers because I am careful. And you really don't want to be stuck in a survival situation and then have to deal with a broken hand on top of whatever else you have going on. So this next one that I want to show you guys is called the L-7 trigger. And this is for a snare system, a spring snare. So I'm going to show you making the little snare. So I carry this stainless steel wire. I can't remember exactly what gauge this is. I will find that out and put it here. But anyways, the breaking strength on this was enough for what I felt would be good for small game animals up to the size of a rabbit. So I'm going to pull myself out about, well, I'm going to go about 14 inches. And I can just work this back and forth to break it. Okay. So with one end of this wire, I'm going to take a little stick right here and wrap the wire around once and twice. Then with the excess, I'm going to spin the stick. And we can break the stick off to get that out. And we have a little eye. We can run our wire through that eye. Now we have a loop. And here at the other end, I'm going to make another loop. That way we have something to hook our cordage onto. Now one thing that you can also do with this is your little piece here at the end of the loop. You can point that down. I don't know if that's going to show up. You can point that down into the snare, so when it pulls tight, that will stick into whatever it is that you're trying to capture. Okay, now that we got the wire out of the way, let's work on the trigger. So the L7, we've got a 7 for you guys. There's a 7. We have the little notch here. And I've already went ahead and sharpened one end of this. What it is this is the way the tree branch grew. And that was another branch coming off. We're going to turn it upside down. We will pound this stake into the ground. And now what I need to do, after cutting this off, I need to make something to hook onto the edge of that. So I've got this stick here. Say right there's a good spot. So again, we're going to make another 7 notch. Those things are used for a lot of stuff. But this time I want to angle it inward a little bit. Instead of straight in, I want to angle it inward just a little bit. Now if you have a little saw, these go a little faster. Okay, now at the opposite end of this, the opposite end from our 7 notch, I'm going to just carve a little notch around this to hook to some paracord, and then that will be attached to our engine. which could be a spring pole, sapling, or a rock that's hanging in the air. I'll show you guys more about that whenever we get over to that part. So I'm just putting a little notch all the way around this so that the cordage that I use has something to hang on to and it's not going to slip off. So I've got this piece of cordage here, and I'm going to go ahead and tie one end of this around our trigger. I'm going to use a tag end in case our snare ends up a little bit further away from where we're able to pound the stake into the ground. I'm just going to wrap that a couple times. Just going to use a plain old knot to tie this off with. And you want to make as much of this as you can away from the area you plan on setting your snare, because the more time you spend in the area setting the trap, well, if the animal's nearby, it'll see you and be scared away and not want to come through there. But also, the more scent you leave on that area. So the less scent and disturbance you have on that area, the animal's going to be more comfortable traveling through there again. All right, let's go over and get this thing set up. So now we're going to set up that L-7. And for the way I'm going to do this, it's a little bit more dangerous, so you really want to be careful when you're doing this and really got to pay attention. So I've got a big rock. I'm going to measure out with my cordage. I'm going to hang this rock see if I can get this to line up right. There we go. Over this. Oh, yeah, hang the rock over that piece right there. So I marked my cordage about where the rock needs to sit when I pull this tight. You want to make sure your rock's going to hang properly before you start stringing this up. So, I have my snare loop. It's about the good size for a squirrel here. Don't want to lose that. I've got my stake that I need to pound into the ground. Well, that's not going to work very well there. That ground is a little soft. So I found a more stable spot on the other side of this stump here that should still be a decent location. And again, I'm doing this kind of out in the open a little bit so it's easier for you to see. Turn that the other way. Now you just place that along the trail, wherever the squirrel might walk through. Since it's just an example here, I just propped it up in the grass, but I want to be careful with this. Make sure my dog's not close to that rock. Anyways, squirrel comes hopping through. Snare pulls tight, the squirrel goes to squirm. Squirrel goes up in the air. And again, squirrels through. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed this video and maybe learned something. And these are skills that you need to practice to stay on top of, and so that if you ever have to use it, it's right there on top of your toolbox ready to grab. For me, the L-7, something I haven't done in a while, and I ran into a little bit of a hard time getting that one to set up the way that I wanted it to, but in the end it still worked. And that's all for this one. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.